Maybe you are not lazy. Maybe you need a reason. You can sit in front of a task and know it matters. You know the deadline. You know what will happen if you keep putting it off. You may even feel guilty for not starting. And still, nothing moves. That is when the questions begin. Am I lazy? Am I undisciplined? Why can't I just do what needs to be done? Sometimes the problem is not that you have no reason. The reason may simply feel too far away from the thing in front of you. You know exercise matters because you want to stay healthy. But at 6 in the morning, the future benefit feels far away. Getting out of bed feels immediate. You know finishing a report matters for your work. But right now, the career benefit is somewhere in the future. The empty document is right in front of you. That is the gap. The goal has meaning, but the effort is happening now. And sometimes the immediate effort speaks louder than the distant reason. There is another side to this. Not every task needs to inspire you. Washing dishes does not need a life purpose. Answering an email does not need to feel meaningful. Sometimes a small task only needs to support something that already matters. So when you cannot get started, try asking, what does finishing this make easier? Maybe it clears tomorrow morning. Maybe it keeps a promise. Maybe it removes a problem you would otherwise carry into the next day. Maybe it moves something important forward by one small step. You do not always need a bigger purpose. Sometimes the reason is already there. You just need to connect it to what you have to do next. Because sometimes the problem is not motivation itself. It is that the reason lives too far away from the next action. Reason 1. External pressure can make you move without making you care. External pressure can get you moving. A deadline, a boss waiting, someone expecting an answer. Sometimes that is exactly what you need to start. But there is a difference between doing something because pressure is pushing you and feeling like the work is actually yours. You may finish the task, meet the deadline, look completely responsible from the outside. But inside, it can feel like your body showed up while your mind stayed somewhere else. Pressure can make you act. It does not always make you care. And that becomes obvious when the pressure disappears. Imagine your boss says, I need this finished by 5. You get it done. But the next morning, without anyone asking, you have no desire to return to it. The deadline created action. It did not create ownership. That does not make external pressure useless. Deadlines can stop procrastination. Accountability can help when motivation is low. Sometimes pressure is a very good starter. But there is another risk. If pressure is always what gets you moving, you may slowly learn to wait for urgency. You postpone the task. Nothing happens. So you wait. Then the deadline gets close. The pressure rises. And suddenly you can focus. After enough repetitions, urgency starts to feel like the only way you know how to begin. So when everything in your head sounds like, I have to do this, try asking, what part of this am I choosing? Maybe you cannot choose the task, but you can choose when to begin, how you want to approach it, or what finished needs to look like. That small amount of ownership matters, because the goal is not to remove every deadline. It is to stop needing panic before you can move. Pressure tells you what must happen. Ownership helps you begin before urgency has to do it for you. Reason 2. The reason has to feel like yours. Sometimes you know exactly why you are supposed to do something, and you still cannot feel much motivation for it. Someone says, just start, just do it, stop asking so many questions. But somewhere in your mind, another question keeps coming back. Why am I doing this? That question becomes important when the answer sounds like, because I should, because everyone expects me to, because this is what successful people do. Those are reasons, but they may not feel like yours. You can see this with a career goal. Maybe you keep saying, I need to get promoted. But when you really think about it, you do not want the position. You want the approval that seems to come with it. Sometimes motivation is weak not because there is no reason, but because you are living inside a reason you never really chose. There is another side to this. Your reason does not have to be exciting. You may not love your current job, but you may choose to stay because it gives your family stability. You may dislike studying for a certification, but you choose it because it opens the door to work you actually want. The task may still be difficult, not easy, but worth it. So when a goal looks important, but you keep resisting it, ask, Whose reason am I using? Then make the answer honest. I want this. I do not want this, but I choose what it gives me. Or, this mattered to someone else. It no longer matters to me. Sometimes you do not need a stronger reason. You need a reason you can actually stand behind. Reason 3, the goal may be right, but the cost may be wrong. Sometimes the goal really is yours. You chose it. You still want it. And yet, the longer you follow the path, the less energy you seem to have. You still show up. You still do what is expected. From the outside, everything may look fine. But inside, something becomes quieter. That can happen when the goal is not the problem. The way you are reaching it is. Maybe you value your career, but the job keeps asking you to work in ways you do not respect. Maybe you want financial success, but not at the cost of never being present with your family. Maybe you care about helping people, but the environment leaves you treating them like numbers. Over time, that conflict can become exhausting. But there is an important difference here. Discomfort does not automatically mean you are on the wrong path. Training for something important can be uncomfortable. Caring for a family can be tiring. Building a business can require sacrifices. Some costs serve what you value. Others slowly pull you away from it. So instead of asking only, does this still feel right? Ask something more specific. What does this path keep asking me to compromise? Then look at the pattern. Is the sacrifice temporary? Or has it become the normal price of staying? Sometimes you do not need to abandon the goal. You may need to change the way you are pursuing it. Because the destination can still matter, even when the road you chose to reach it no longer does. Reason 4. You cannot pretend to care for very long. Sometimes the task itself is not what exhausts you most. It is having to pretend you feel differently about it. At first, you may not notice. You do the work. Join the meeting. Smile when everyone is excited. Say, that sounds great, even when you have concerns. And keep acting more interested than you really feel. For a while, you can do that. But now, you are doing 2 jobs. One is the actual work. The other is managing the version of yourself everyone expects to see. That second job can become surprisingly tiring. And if you do it long enough, something else can happen. You may become so used to performing interest that you stop checking what you actually feel. Sometimes the boring part is not the task. It is having to act excited about it too. But that does not mean you should only do work you love. You do not have to love every task to do it well. You can answer an email professionally without enjoying it. You can finish a project that is not exciting. You can be respectful even when you disagree. Professionalism is not the same as pretending to be passionate. So when you feel drained, ask, what do I actually need to do here? And what am I only pretending to feel? Then separate the responsibility from the emotion. Maybe your responsibility is to finish the project well. Be respectful, keep your promise, do good work. Do that. But you do not also need to convince yourself that you love it. You can simply say, this is not my favourite work, but I can do it well. That kind of honesty does not remove responsibility. It removes unnecessary performance. And sometimes the work becomes lighter when you stop spending energy trying to look excited about carrying it. Reason 5. You can focus deeply, just not on everything. Sometimes your focus can look completely inconsistent. You struggle to spend 15 minutes answering an important email. Then you find something that genuinely interests you, and 3 hours disappear. You can study deeply, build patiently, research one idea far beyond what anyone asked, and stay with a difficult problem much longer than people expected. This can be confusing, even to you. Why can I do this so deeply, but struggle with that? One reason is that your attention may be more selective than you realize. When something pulls you in, staying focused requires much less pushing. But there is a catch. The things that hold your attention are not always the things that need your attention most. You may spend an entire evening improving one interesting part of a project, while avoiding the boring 20-minute task that actually has to be finished tomorrow. Deep focus can be a strength, but it is not a perfect priority system. Something can be fascinating without being important, and something important can still be boring. So instead of asking only, what can I focus on? Ask, does this deserve this much of my attention? Or is it simply easier for me to care about? Then protect the work that will not naturally pull you in. Before disappearing into the interesting project, finish the important email. Make the appointment. Complete the small task you keep avoiding. You do not need to weaken your deep focus. You need to stop letting it decide everything. Because motivation may choose where your attention wants to go, but sometimes you still have to choose where your attention needs to go. The cost is not only struggling with motivation, it is what people may decide that struggle says about you. Lazy, difficult, unmotivated, too hard to satisfy. Someone may even say, you only do what you want. And that can hurt, especially when, from the outside, part of your behavior seems to support the story. You hesitate, you ask questions, you move slowly on one task, then become intensely focused on another. To other people, that can look inconsistent. But there is another cost that is easier to miss. If you hear those labels often enough, you may start living around them. You take on extra work just to prove you are responsible. You stop asking questions because you do not want to seem difficult. You say yes when you really need to say no. You push harder than necessary because being called lazy has become something you are trying to escape. Now the label has created a second problem. But this does not mean every criticism is wrong. Sometimes you did wait too long. Sometimes you missed the deadline. Sometimes someone else had to carry the part you did not finish. A label can be unfair even when the behavior underneath it needs work. So instead of asking, am I lazy? Ask, what specific behavior are they reacting to? Maybe you need to start earlier, communicate sooner, keep a promise, or build a better system for the work you tend to avoid. Fix the behavior without turning it into an identity. And do not spend your life proving a label wrong. Take responsibility for what is actually yours, without turning every struggle into a verdict about who you are. Warning, not everything boring is meaningless. There is one warning you need to hear. Not everything boring is meaningless. You may start thinking, if this really mattered to me, I would feel motivated. But that is not always true. You can care deeply about your health and still not want to exercise on a tired morning. You can care about your future and still avoid the work that helps build it. You can love someone and still feel tired of the responsibilities that come with caring for them. Meaning does not guarantee motivation every day. It gives you a reason to choose the direction, but it cannot carry every step for you. That is where a simple system becomes useful. Once you know something genuinely matters, decide what you will do when the feeling is not there. Maybe exercise becomes a 20-minute walk. Writing becomes 10 minutes with the document open. Studying becomes one focused session. The goal is not to make every task feel meaningful again. It is to stop asking yourself for a new emotional reason every time you need to begin. So ask, if I do not feel motivated tomorrow, what is the smallest version of this I will still do? Then make that your minimum. You can always do more when the energy is there, but you no longer need inspiration just to stay in motion. And there is a balance here. A routine should support something you have chosen. It should not keep an old goal alive forever just because you once committed to it. So review the direction sometimes. Just do not renegotiate it every morning. Meaning can help you choose where you are going. A system helps you keep moving when meaning feels quiet. Final thoughts. Motivation needs a meaning it can trust. If your mind needs meaning before it feels motivated, do not shame yourself for that. But do not use it as an excuse either. Both things can be true. You may not be lazy, and you may still need discipline. You may know exactly why something matters, and still not feel like doing it today. You can care deeply and still procrastinate. You can have a good reason and still feel tired. That does not make the reason false. It means meaning alone is not enough. Meaning helps you choose a direction. Discipline helps you keep moving when the feeling is quiet. And honesty helps you recognize when something genuinely needs to change. Those are different jobs. Motivation was never meant to carry all of them. So when you feel stuck, stop turning the moment into a judgment about who you are. Ask 3 simpler questions. Does this still matter to me? What is one useful step I can take today? And if the struggle keeps returning, what needs to change the goal, the path, or the way I am trying to do it? Sometimes the answer is to keep going. Sometimes it is to change the system. Sometimes it is to admit that something you once wanted no longer fits. Losing motivation does not automatically mean you are on the wrong path. But staying disciplined does not automatically mean you should stay on the same path forever either. You need both commitment and honesty. Give your mind a reason. Then give your body one small action. Not a perfect plan, not a dramatic promise, just one honest step. If you have ever lost motivation because something stopped feeling meaningful, comment 8 below. And if this helped you understand your mind a little more clearly, consider subscribing. Because the goal is not to feel motivated all the time. It is to know what deserves your effort and how to keep moving when the feeling is not there.